It was a quiet morning in Port Royal when a weather-beaten sloop, half sunken and covered in barnacles, drifted into the bay. The fishermen who spotted it first crossed themselves, whispering of ghosts and lost souls. The Sea Venture had been missing for months, presumed lost to the merciless Caribbean storms. Now it had returned, but with no crew aboard. The small boat, battered and broken, barely resembled the sturdy ship it once was. Its rigging was in tatters, its sails shredded by wind and salt water, and its hull was cracked and leaking. No one dared approach it at first. The stories of ghost ships that haunted the Caribbean had been passed down through generations, and now, standing before them, was living proof of those tales. The only movement came from the gentle rocking of the boat against the dock, but there was no sign of life on board. The Sea Venture was empty, abandoned, or worse, its crew gone without a trace. For days, whispers rippled through Port Royal, each version of the story darker than the last. What had happened to the men who sailed her? Where had they gone? What had they encountered out there on the water? The answer, it seemed, lay far away, on an island not found on any map, where survival had been a battle fought not just against nature, but against something darker, something that lurked in the shadows of their minds. In the late summer of 1742, the Sea Venture, a sturdy Bermuda sloop, set sail from Port Royal, Jamaica, bound for the British colonies of North America. Her crew, a mix of seasoned sailors and hopeful traders, carried valuable cargo, spices, rum, and fabrics, destined for bustling colonial markets. The journey was supposed to be routine, the kind of trade route the men had followed for years. But the Caribbean had other plans. The storm came out of nowhere, a violent tempest that seemed to appear from the very heart of the ocean. The sea rose like a giant monster, devouring everything in its path. Towering waves crashed against the wooden hull, while howling winds ripped through the sails, reducing them to tatters. The crew fought desperately to maintain control, bailing water, adjusting rigging and tying down whatever they could. But no amount of skill could conquer the fury of the storm. "She won't hold," cried First Mate Elias Graves, gripping the wheel as the ship veered wildly, threatening to capsize. Captain Josiah Blackwood, a man of grit and experience, barked orders over the deafening winds. "Stay with her, lads. We make for land." But the sea had already decided their fate. A final, monstrous wave lifted the Sea Venture high before slamming it down onto a jagged reef. The wood groaned, then splintered. Within minutes, the sloop broke apart, sending crew and cargo into the churning sea. Screams were swallowed by the roar of the storm as the ocean claimed everything. The storm raged on long after the Sea Venture had been reduced to debris. By the time the winds died down, the surviving crew was scattered across the open sea, helpless in the face of the tempest's wrath. When the storm finally subsided, the surviving crew found themselves washed ashore on a narrow, palm-fringed beach. The island, uncharted and seemingly uninhabited, loomed before them like a twisted paradise, a place of beauty marred by the unknown dangers lurking within. "We live," muttered Graves, coughing seawater as he surveyed their bedraggled company. Their numbers had dwindled. Of the original 25 sailors, only 15 remained. Some had drowned, others were lost to the waves. Among the survivors were the ship's carpenter, Thomas Wyatt, and cook, Henry Locke, two men whose skills would soon prove invaluable. Blackwood stood, drenched and weary, but his voice remained firm. "We make do with what we have. Wyatt, see what you can salvage from the wreck. Locke, see to food and water. The rest of you, find shelter." With no choice but to comply, the men set to work. The island provided coconuts, small game, and freshwater streams. Using driftwood and broken timbers from the wreck, they fashioned a crude shelter. They lit fires using flint found in the wreckage and scavenged anything useful that had washed ashore. Ropes, barrels, and a battered spyglass. Days turned to weeks. They hunted wild boar, speared fish in the shallows, and collected rainwater in hollowed-out gourds. But the island was not without peril. Large lizards, unfamiliar and aggressive, prowled the underbrush. Poisonous plants lined the jungle paths. The heat was stifling, and the nights were filled with the eerie cries of unseen creatures, their howls sending shivers through the men. The greatest challenge, however, was morale. Hunger gnawed at them, but it was the isolation and growing fear that threatened to break their spirits. They were alone on this island, and no help was coming. As the days stretched into weeks, the men grew restless. Some spoke of building a raft to escape, while others argued that waiting for a passing ship was their only hope. Captain Blackwood, though firm, knew he was losing control. "We cannot lose hope," he told them, his voice carrying the weight of years spent at sea. "We are men of the sea. The sea will not abandon us." But food grew scarce. The easy catches from the sea disappeared, and hunting became more dangerous as the wild boar grew wary. Wyatt led an expedition inland, hoping to find more game, but he returned with grim news. "We are not alone," he whispered to Blackwood that night, revealing a strange discovery. Carved symbols on trees, footprints in the sand. Fear spread like wildfire among the crew. Were there others on the island? Natives? Castaways like themselves? Or worse, Pirates? Days later, their fears were confirmed. While foraging near the northern cliffs, Locke stumbled upon something chilling: the remains of an old camp, rusted weapons, broken pottery, and a single human skull half buried in the sand. That night, they took turns standing watch, peering into the darkness, expecting unseen enemies to emerge from the trees. Every snapping twig sent shivers through them. The island no longer felt deserted, it felt haunted. On the 73rd day, hope arrived on the horizon. A merchant vessel, its sails full and proud, appeared against the sunrise. The castaways, overcome with relief, built signal fires and waved frantically. But the ship did not change course. Desperation took hold. Using scraps from the wreck, they fashioned a raft. Blackwood and 3 men paddled out, fighting the currents to intercept the vessel. Just as they neared, the ship turned, a black flag rising above its mast. "Pirates!" Graves shouted from the shore. Blackwood and his crew barely made it back to the island, the pirate vessel losing interest in what seemed like a doomed party. But the encounter left the castaways shaken. If they were found again, their rescuers might not be so kind. The island, once a potential escape, had now become a place of terror. Determined to know more about their prison, Wyatt and Graves led another expedition inland. This time, they found ruins, crumbled stone walls, remnants of a long-abandoned settlement. They speculated it belonged to Spanish explorers from centuries past. Among the ruins, they found rusted cutlasses and musket balls, suggesting a violent end to its occupants. "This island has seen blood," Wyatt murmured, his voice thick with unease. Then deeper within the jungle, they found something even more unsettling: a set of crude graves. The markers were primitive, hastily carved with symbols none of them recognized. Who had buried these bodies? And what had killed them? The men returned to camp silent, unwilling to voice their growing dread. Something malevolent lingered on the island, and they could feel its presence closing in. Determined not to wait for another near miss, Wyatt proposed a bold plan. They would build a seaworthy craft from the wreck's remains. Over the next weeks, they worked tirelessly, crafting a small sloop-rigged boat. It was crude but sturdy, capable of holding 10 men. On the 92nd day, they set sail. Using makeshift sails and steering by the stars, they navigated the open waters. Hunger gnawed at them, the sun burned their skin, but their spirits remained high. After 4 days at sea, they spotted land: Barbados, a British colony. Weak but triumphant, they staggered onto the shore, rescued by local fishermen who rushed to their aid. The ordeal was over. And yet, the mystery of the island remained, forever lurking in the depths of the Caribbean, waiting for the next lost soul to wash ashore. As the Sea Venture was carried back into the docks of Port Royal, her sailors spoke of their journey, of the island that was no island, of the ghosts they had seen, and the dark forces that had driven them from their own homes. The mystery was far from solved, and some said the island was still out there, waiting. Thank you for watching this video. Hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more interesting videos.